Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our roundtable at the Institute of International Affairs. Today, we will discuss a very important and a timely topic, the Armenia-Azerbaijan peace process, from frozen conflict to hot peace. I'm Mariam Kebadze, the Future Leaders Program Fellow here at the Institute, and I'll be moderating the discussion today. And for this very special occasion, we gathered here distinguished panel speakers today here. Next to me, you will meet Mr. Rusif Husseinov, co-founder, director of Topçubas OE Center. Johnny Melikian, head of the International Relations Research Department, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade. Mr. Peter Kranitz, Senior Research Fellow at the Hungarian Institute for International Affairs, and Sándor Sheremet, Senior Research Fellow at the Hungarian Institute of International Affairs as well. And it will be a moderated discussion, and after the discussion, you'll have an opportunity to raise your questions, and we'll have the QA session. So in August, as many of you know, there was a peace treaty agreement announced in Washington between Azerbaijan and Armenia. And many believe that we were close to a historic breakthrough when Armenia and Azerbaijan announced this declaration. However, the actual peace treaty is still not finalized and not ratified. And there is no sign that it will be ratified even soon. This raises an essential question. Is the conflict really over, or is there still a risk of new tensions and escalation? I would like to ask a question to Mr. Husseinov firstly. So 4 months have passed since the Washington Declaration was signed by American President Donald Trump and Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev and Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan. The document was celebrated as a milestone, but as I've already mentioned, there are no signs of ratification so far. What do you think? What are the most significant decisions made in the document? To brief us. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mariam. One Armenian, one Azerbaijan, and one Georgian. This is how many South Caucasus jokes usually start. And for our contemporary context, we can also add 2 Hungarians for newer jokes. Yeah. But yes, as your question, first of all, I don't want to separate the Washington meeting from the general process. Yes, it was not a single episode. It was part of a very long and dynamic context, maybe the peak of the process, which has been underway for the past 2 years. And I have to give due credit to the diplomats from both Armenia and Azerbaijan who established confidence and who worked bilaterally, directly on the peace text. And there were several milestones this year. It was mid-March when the text of the peace deal was announced, and then it was the Abu Dhabi meeting in June between the leaders of 2 countries. And August, it was Washington with, again, two leaders, Armenia and Azerbaijan, with the international presence, US president as the eyewitness and facilitator. If you ask about what this process has brought to us, it has given us consistency. It has given us documented framework and setting. And as part of this process, we also have de facto peace on the ground, because like in the past 2 years, we did not record any border clashes. There were no casualties, thank God, which is quite unprecedented for the Armenia-Azerbaijan context. Again, if you ask for more outcomes, there are several visible and invisible outputs. There can be some very symbolic gestures, which is the joint interviews of the Armenian and Azerbaijani top officials in Doha just a couple of days ago, or the Azerbaijani ambassador in Berlin greeting Mr. Pashinyan in Armenian. And there can be also very, very tangible outcomes, such as Azerbaijan's lifting an embargo on Armenia-bound cargo, or Azerbaijan's export, now drumstick, export fuel to Armenia, which is again very unprecedented. Not everyone could have thought and imagined these kind of things several years back. So yes, this is a huge accomplishment, but we are still in the beginning of this journey, and hopefully more is yet to come.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hosseino, for your answer. Exactly. We saw that now the Azerbaijan and Armenia are more on the way of cooperating economically by lifting the embargo and all this. But what exact obstacles lie ahead when it comes to signing the treaty? Why it's not so foreseeable yet? If you could elaborate a little bit on it.
I'll try to be very quick. There have been a lot of talks about what constitute the biggest problems and obstacles in the Armenia-Azerbaijan peace process, and what actually prevents us from signing the peace deal. The most usual answer is the constitution of Armenia, which Azerbaijan wants to be changed, because according to the Azerbaijani perception, there is certain territorial claims in the Armenian constitution against Azerbaijan. But overall, in my understanding, we are going through a paradox, because on the one hand, the Azerbaijani side cannot go for full normalization until the June elections in Armenia, because we don't know what kind of results will be there and whether the current government in Yerevan will remain in power. On the other hand, the incumbent Armenian authorities, they also have bet a lot in the peace process, and any progress in this direction will somehow boost their chances in the election. So it's kind of a paradox right now. But another thing could be about the speed of the process. Maybe for our Armenian interlocutors, the pace of the process is slow. For us, things are developing very, very rapidly. Every day we see something new as part of the direct peace process or indirect or spin-off outcomes. But again, if we just zoom it out and look at this very big process, of course, the peace negotiations must take time. And it's like a goulash soup. Cooking takes a lot of time, but the end result is very delicious.
Thank you so much. And exactly as Mr. Husseinov stated, most of jokes in South Caucasia start with, yes, there is one Georgian, one Armenian, one Azerbaijani sitting either at the table or on the airplane. So I'm happy that today we're on the ground. And South Caucasia is very strategically super important region, not only for its neighboring area, but also in the global scope. And as we saw, there was recently Trump route announced in Washington, and it could actually shift the balance in the region. At the same time, next year's parliamentary elections in Armenia could also influence the peace process and its direction. And I would like to ask Mr. Melikian, what is Armenian government's understanding of the role of the Trump route, or the so-called TRIP initiated by the Washington Declaration, and what is its stance on the preconditions to the signing of the peace treaty?
Thank you very much. I want to welcome you all. I'm very happy to be here in this institution. I know this institution for many years, but I'm first time here. So it's a pleasure and privilege to be here to talk about our region perspectives. So I would start probably from the question which you asked my colleague Rusif. So probably, it was wise decision to decouple a couple of questions. So because if in previous period we were putting everything in one paper, problems with one specific issue. There were closing progress in other directions. So that's why when we decided not to put a couple of problematic issues in the paper, in this document peace deal, so that's why we came to the decision that probably we discussed all articles, and as Rusif told, we already from the beginning of this year came to this issue, and this document was probably pre-signed in Washington by the ministers of foreign affairs. But another issue which you already also raised, the blocking of the region, was also part of these discussions, and we have Armenian-American declaration, we have trilateral document, so bilateral witnessed by United States. So we're on the deblocking of the region. We have this decision to have Trump Road for international peace and prosperity. So some of our neighbors doesn't like, so they don't like Trump's mentioning, but let's put it the way. So TRIP is probably now is in paper. As we know, and from our Prime Minister said during his speech in Berlin, so from the beginning of the next year, when we will establish joint venture Armenian-United States, this company probably will start to implement this project, which will be, and this company will be in charge of construction of roads, railroads, pipelines, cable, power lines, so fiber optic, etc. So probably this is also pushing this process forward. Probably, if you want to hear my opinion, I also see that this process is very fast. I don't think that it's slow, so maybe some circles in Armenia are hurrying up, but you know, in this process we should be very calm in some issues. We should work not publicly, and this process is probably was started from not public discussions. So that's why from Abu Dhabi meeting until Washington Accords, so we had huge work, and yes, I am joining to receive, thanking our diplomats who made maximum to get this result. Now, process should be continued. Modalities should be more strictly figured out and published, and to show population of Armenia, of Azerbaijan, to show our neighbors not to have some fears from this document, because we know that why I'm saying TRIP is problematic, especially for our southern neighbor for Iran. So that's why each of us has many things to do in our countries, dealing with our partners. And the thing is that if we'll speak about obstacles, still I see that in Azerbaijan, political main agenda is not changing. They call it the way we don't want to hear, probably. And we have many discussions with Azerbaijani colleagues on different platforms, and last 3 months, I think, we had a couple of discussions. If this corridor is corridor from Kars to Baku, it can have another naming, yes, not strictly linked with Armenian region. So even I think today, Minister of Energy of Azerbaijan was saying that it's a corridor from Central Asia, Azerbaijan to Turkey. So if this corridor is going through Armenian territory, you also should mention Central Asia, Azerbaijan, Armenia, Turkey. So if you are not putting Armenia in this line, maybe some accusations or maybe some opinions will occur, and people will think that there is some hidden agenda under this. So that's why when we talk about obstacles with some problems possible, we should probably put everything on the table, saying this. So it's there is nothing about territorial integrity of Armenia. This will be another corridor which Azerbaijan will use to enter Nakhichevan, Turkey, and to Europe. So we will allow and will give the opportunity for Central Asian countries, other partner countries, to have a trade via our territory. But here also, I think another problem, overestimation of this road. So so if we're speaking about real road, it's limited, and maximum is 5 million tons of goods, I think. And this is also showing us that maybe in the future we will, and there is a need not to concentrate only on this marshroute, so to use other opportunities. So there we have also Armenian railroad system and possible other directions where railroads of both countries can link. And for Turkey, so it might be also useful to use Kars-Gyumri part and to enter Nakhichevan, not to build new railroad, which will cost them more than up to $4 billion. So we are in the process of beginning of these kind of projects. So we have them in mind, in paper, discussed already. And in the future, I think we will come to realization, implementation of these projects. And, it's one thing if you are deciding with something and another implementing it, and more resources and time should be spent in the future to have this process going on. I think probably in upcoming years, we have now stable situation in the region, nothing happening on the borders. And Rusif also told about this embargo issue, and if it will be continued and Armenian goods will transfer via Azerbaijan territory to Central Asia, to Russia, it will probably show also populations of both countries that something is also already going on, and it will probably also influence positively this process of normalization or confidence building between our societies, because we witness many formats, yes, 1.5 format where Rusif is participating. So first time our experts went to Baku, Azerbaijani experts and civil society representatives visited Yerevan. So Rusif also was, we were hosting Orbeli Forum, our think tank annual forum, where he with other Azerbaijani colleagues participated. And I think next year we also, some Armenian experts or civil society representatives will have opportunity to visit Baku. So this is also showing that some process and some things which were impossible even half a year ago, 1 year ago, now we see that this is happening, and it also will help in this process.
Thank you so much for a very insightful answer. We see that major global powers are interested in the region. I would like to ask Mr. Sheremet about Russia's interest in the South Caucasus, especially how does he see the future of Russia in the South Caucasus and in Armenia in particular, because we know that Russia is the single largest partner in trade with Armenia and is the main provider of energy to Armenia also.
Thank you very much. Well, Russia is, I would say, a reactive power, and it usually reacts when it feels either threatened or pushed away. With the situation that occurred now in the Caucasus, which is a very positive tendency that Armenia and Azerbaijan are on the way to get a deal, to have peace, shows that Russians may lost their leverages that they used to have in the region. For them, it was very comfortable when the frozen conflict, or sometimes frozen, sometimes hot phased conflict was there, because by this, they could pressure both Armenia and Azerbaijan, so they kept their foot over there. Because if you look at the map, then you can see that the South Caucasus is a critically important region for Russia. Why I'm saying this? Because from the eastern tip of Ukraine to the western tip of Kazakhstan, there's only 600 kilometers distance. And there's the Caucasus Rim underneath it to the south. So if Russia would lost its positions in Kazakhstan, in Ukraine, and in the South Caucasus, is totally cut away from the Black Sea, from the Caspian Sea, will have no connections to Iran or other partners on the south. So for this perspective, if Russia wants to, keep at least something in the region, then it might change, or it might need change its approach to the region. By this I mean the brute force that it may use will not be applicable over there, but the economic elements of Russia's presence in the region might be increasing. I mean, if the Russians will be thinking this way. If we look in the broader perspective, then Russia is now deeply involved in the Ukraine conflict and they want to settle this conflict. But if they're going to end the hostilities over there, and they will be able to reach a deal, and they will try to reestablish their position in the global political sphere, then I believe they will try to re-engage and reapproach the region. And I hope it will be more economic and soft powerish rather than military, because it seems that their military capabilities are, they're enough for attrition, but not enough for quick advance and quick solutions over there. And I hope that they will be wise enough not to use this. But they're going to have to find a modus operandi with Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Armenia. With Armenia is easier due to the interlinkage of their economies. And I'm not talking about CSTO and the Eurasian Economic Union. It's about the pragmatic cooperation on the most important elements of their economy, like the nuclear power or other energetic spheres. With Azerbaijan, the situation is more business-based. Russian companies are interested and are involved in the hydrocarbon industries of the region, of Azerbaijan in particular. So having good relations with Baku is not only necessary for Moscow, but also money-wise, it's a thing that must be there. I wouldn't jump into big details over there, because predictions on Russia's behavior while it's in war in Ukraine are very hard. But if we have to estimate it, then the wisest thing from Russia's perspective would be to engage economically in the region, which Russia is capable of doing, but at this point it is limited due to the sanction regimes and due to the hostilities in Ukraine. But one thing is certain: Russia will not let go on the Caucasus, and Russia will try to keep its foot there. Let's hope that it will not be an aggressive attempt to remain in the region, but who knows?
Thank you so much. Mr. Kranitz, as a foreign observer to the region and the conflict, what do you think, what are other major global powers that have stake in the region and or interest to establish themselves better there, and how would they potentially influence the peace process between Azerbaijan and Armenia?
Thank you so much. Well, as for global superpowers, there are two, the US and China, and the South Caucasus is still a distant part of the world especially for the US, but also for China. So the largest stakeholders that have not yet been mentioned I mean, it was Russia and the regional local countries, but other states, most essentially it's Turkey who appears to hold higher and higher stakes in the region over the past couple of years, and this is a tendency that is ongoing. And if we look at the patterns, then we see that it is Turkey among the regional players or actors, countries that have the largest interest in changing the previous status quo, unlike Russia and Iran. So it is very important to look at the dynamics that Turkey is engaged in the region. And I'm happy to see that Ankara has taken on this peace agenda between Armenia and Azerbaijan. It is ready to hold talks and negotiate with Armenia their bilateral relationships, their normalization of economic ties. Talks are ongoing on opening borders, at least for a future trade communication. But in the long run, who knows, maybe Armenians and Turkish citizens will be able to travel along the border. And at the same time, we see that Turkey is the single most important strategic partner of Azerbaijan in both politics and economics, and also in defense. There is a saying that it's actually one nation and two states. This is such a strong bond founded in cultural and historic ties that I don't think it in the foreseeable future will be or could be challenged. So Turkish presence in the region, especially Azerbaijan, their cooperation in Azerbaijan, getting rid of historic dependencies on, for example, Russian military technology or intelligence and trade routes and markets, export markets. Azerbaijan has indeed been able to gain its independence, not just on paper, but in reality, in real terms, when it comes to selling their goods and establishing partnerships. And it is the Turkish relationship. The other stakeholder with heavy stakes in the region is obviously Iran, which, as I have previously mentioned, seems to be more interested in a previous status quo. Yes, the trip route that has Johnny very well said is probably mostly challenged or potentially challenged by those in Tehran. There have been very hawkish responses to this proposal of US private companies appearing in the region, and especially along the Armenian-Iranian border. Tehran sees it or evaluates it, perceives it as a potential threat for it to be cut off of north-south connectivity. But also there is another issue here, and this is another stakeholder, and it's Israel and its strategic partnership to Azerbaijan on energy, military, and intelligence. This is one other aspect of regional affairs that irritates Iran to the point that if the Israel-Iran war would be re-escalated in the foreseeable future, or there will be no nuclear deal done with the US, and tensions in the region might, just reach its limits, then I'm afraid it is unpredictable to say whether Iran will try to force its influence on the peace project. Of the peace process regionally. Well, as for the global players, China, over the past 3 years, established strategic partnership with all three regional countries, starting from Georgia through Azerbaijan to Armenia. It is a choke point of the Belt and Road Initiative. The Belt and Road Initiative itself was announced in Kazakhstan, and it is focusing heavily on the region, on the Trans-Caspian region. 47%, 40+% of Chinese FDI is directed in the Central Asia region. And it is crucial for China to establish and develop the Trans-Caspian connectivity, the transportation, the volume of transportation, and the maritime transportation is still very underdeveloped. Of course, on the long run, the northern route through Russia will be or could be the most important trade corridor for China to reach Western markets, but at the same time, Central Asia and the Caspian region holds so much crucial, critical raw materials from rare earth to fossils that China will need to get and stay engaged in the region. And the South Caucasus is, as I told already, it's a choke point of these Chinese endeavors. So as we see an increasing Chinese presence in the South Caucasus, we also see the new Cold War and the new global power competition between US and China to take place in this region too, as we have already mentioned many times that through TRIP, the Trump route, US also attempts to reach the Trans-Caspian region and the Central Asian region. It is also strategically important for the US to get access to these critical elements, these critical materials, because it is China and Brazil that holds most of the rare earth minerals, but not only the reserves, but the production capacities. Over 90% of the production is in China, and if the US is indeed attempts to decouple and de-risk its economy from Chinese supply and value chains, then this is one way to do it. So this might appear in the long run, the Central Euro-Asian region of South Caucasus and Central Asia as a central stage for competition between US and China. But as I also mentioned, regional players still hold the highest stakes. So it's a multi-dimensional competition, and I think the Armenian-Azerbaijan peace process is one crucial and central stage, and it will be decisive for regional balances to shake out. Thank you.
Thank you so much for a very insightful answer. Mr. Husainov, you've recently been a member of a Track 2 delegation in Armenia and also hosted an Armenian delegation in Azerbaijan. What do you think, what are the current peace-building measures that are taking place currently? And what else could be done there to improve the process?
Well, thank you for the question. Johnny already has given some information about what was happening quite lately between the Armenian and Azerbaijan expert communities. To give the context for the audience who might be less knowledgeable about Armenia-Azerbaijan, for almost, now we are approaching the 40th year of the conflict, which started back in 1988. There was no diplomatic engagement, there was no people-to-people contact between the countries. The borders were sealed, no connection whatsoever, connectivity, etc. Therefore, but of course, throughout these years, some visits, mutual visits, did happen, but they were rather exceptions. And therefore, every time when an Armenian would come to Baku or an Azerbaijani goes to Yerevan, it becomes a sensation for the media. This is why I feel I was privileged to visit Yerevan actually twice this fall. The first visit took place within the bilateral track between the Armenian and Azerbaijani civil society representatives. That was rather an introductory meeting for each party. My second visit took place in early November, 10 days after the first visit, when I was hosted by the Orbeli Center, where Johnny works, and I had an opportunity to also deliver a speech there. To give you some more context about this type of engagement and how the societies react or might react. Before my first visit to Yerevan, the preparation, everything had been quite confidential, but I also informed my wife, but I didn't tell anything to my mom because I thought she could be worried about safety issues, etc. But upon my return to Azerbaijan, the first thing I did was to call my mom and ask her reaction, because until then media had already circulated a lot of information, the photos, etc. And the feedback I received from my mom really, felt me very happy, because she said she had been receiving a lot of calls from relatives, from friends, from many people, and almost everyone was congratulating her for my visit to Yerevan. So it really felt me, made me feel very happy and proud about this. Yes, then a reciprocal visit of the Armenian delegation took place in mid-November on the 21st and 22nd of November. And during that meeting, we devoted our time for outlining certain ideas and transforming them into concrete projects. Now we have 5 or 6 projects in the oven, and our time span is 5-6 months, because we also want to deliver certain tangible results. There are some expectations in both societies. There is also a lot of negative feedback. In some cases, the members of this entire group, 5 Armenian, 5 Azerbaijanis, they may be subject to online lynching, etc. But I think this is a dynamic process, and whatever we do, I can. If to give you an analogy, I can say we were icebreakers in, breaking certain barriers, psychological obstacles. Therefore, it was quite important. And now just stay tuned for some projects which can be delivered in the next few months.
Thank you so much. Mr. Melikian, I would have a question to you. Nowadays, we witnessed a huge milestone when it comes to relations with the European Union and Armenia. And the Armenian parliament even adopted a law that foresees the future launching of the country's full accession in the European Union. What are your key takeaways of this partnership, and what do you think, what are the limits of Armenia's engagement with the European Union, and how would it affect the peace dynamics, peace process between Azerbaijan and Armenia?
First of all, I think we are continuing our European integration process. There is no limit, I think, here. And as Armenian side a couple of times was mentioning, so we'll do maximum to have reforms to change our state into more European style democracy. And it will be already up to Brussels and member states to decide what to do with this. So we should, I think, decouple these two processes. So its commitment in Yerevan taken by this government on European integration, on possible future membership. But here we see some other limitations also inside European Union, yes? So we are in Hungary, so Hungarian government has its own approach, not only on Armenia or other post-Soviet countries, but there are also a couple of other countries who are in the line of membership, and they for decades are sitting and waiting until this. So that's why, so there are some limitation in European Union, there are some limitation from our side, but one thing is probably for sure, Armenia will continue this process. And it's also is not dependent on election results, because the policy of diversification, the policy of regionalization, European integration as a part of Armenian foreign policy, it was nothing new. it's now actively going on. It's more faster now with this government, but it was also in the agenda of Armenian governments before. So let's start from this neighborhood policy, Eastern Partnership, which was before, long year before. So it will continue. So we will have maybe more or less faster or slower processes, but it will also go on. So that's why even with upcoming elections, their results, the process will continue. And here, I would not link Armenian-European integration process with Armenian-Azerbaijani process, because Armenian-EU integration is one foreign policy agenda, regionalization and no problems with our neighbors, yes, minimizing problems with our neighbors, coexistence in this region, yes. So recently, I was watching Doha Forum, and where Iranian, some representative from neighboring Arabic countries, everything. So geography is our also, so the idea which I also have in my mind. So geography is our fate. So we are in this region. So three of us, yes, Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan. Nobody is going to leave this region. So we'll continue to live here, even with different or the same agendas in foreign policy. Here I would probably say that each of us is doing diversification of foreign policy. Maybe there are people who are not satisfied in Georgia, in Armenia, or other countries. But governments of each of our countries, they are trying to balance, trying to minimize risks, because we have this global confrontation with Ukrainian crisis, with Russia-West confrontation. We see how risky is to take sides, yes, because nobody will be guarantor. So if in the case of Azerbaijan, they have Turkey, Georgia and Armenia doesn't have the same Turkey for us, yes? So that's why we are trying to create more engagement with external actors. So recently we signed declaration with Germany on strategic cooperation. Before it was the same document. So the new agenda on strategic cooperation with the European Union, so which renewed former document adopted in 2017. So with the United States, Peter said about China. So both of us, yes, Azerbaijan and Armenia, have experienced signing strategic cooperation. So Azerbaijan signed document with China, then now they are already negotiating with the United States. We signed probably in January this year with Biden administration the Charter of Strategic Cooperation with the United States, but it was not limiting us, and it was great that our diplomacy achieved this milestone, and we probably signed the same kind of document, because in the case of China there are different strategic cooperation documents. So where there is one level strategic cooperation, there is more deeper strategic cooperation. So that's why we are trying to have more relations, more engagement with external actors, not bringing them to our region to have more complicated situation as it was in previous years. So now I want also to mention Russian factor. So, there is a saying, and even in Armenian expert community in some circles and in the region, so that Russia is not factor now, Russia maybe will come. So Russia is in this region. Russia will be in this region because Russia is neighboring with this region. So maybe their limitations will differ, but they are actors. So that's why we are trying to balance our relations with external, with West, with Asian countries. So Armenia was and Azerbaijan, we were trying to be part of Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So we failed, but I think we'll continue this process. So it's not showing that we are concentrating on one direction. So EU integration, as I said, is key priority. We'll continue, modernize our state, democratic institutions, etc., but it should not limit us to not to talk or not to have relations with China, other organizations, because our economy is linked with other countries. Yes, there is China, there is Russia. Even with Azerbaijan's step to lift this embargo, maybe in some cases will create situation when more Russian products will come to this region. So we are dependent on Upper Lars. So, and when it's snowing there, Upper Lars is closing in Georgia, then we have logistic problems, etc. Now we will have probably, inshallah, in the future, if this process will continue, another road to enter Eurasian market. So, but yes, from other side, we should continue to work on economic diversification to bring more Armenian products to European market, which is very hard process. So, and Georgian experience is showing that even with many assistance from European Union during last decade, not so limited goods were importing, exporting from Georgia to European Union, because this market is very closed in the case of also goods from outside which are not familiar for domestic people. So that's why you should have more developed and more competitive goods to compete with other European countries and producers. So that's why we should not also concentrate on EU market, also maybe Central Asia, Asian countries. So to look 360 degree and to empower our economy, be more resilient, and it will bring more stability, I think. Cooperation, stability, peace, etc. Everything is linked. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to actually follow up with you with the obstacles part when it comes to Armenia-EU accession. You mentioned that, yes, it's actually great when a state has the flexibility to diversify its foreign policy, but do you think it is actually attainable to join for Armenia to join the European Union while it stays an active member of CSTO and the Eurasian Economic Union, or considering the quite pushy nature to take sides? Yes. And
this is a problem.
Of the single market.
If one of the centers, it will be Russia or Brussels, will send message that, guys, you should choose side, it will create problems. So that's why until we don't have this, and Georgia faces this process. So you can criticize for many issues Georgian government, but when you are in the position when you should choose sides and risks are also on the ground, then you are rethinking many processes. So that's why on European integration, I think we don't have any problems here. So it's our wish and will, our population's approach, yes, Armenian population approach, to have more resilient, more democratic state, we will continue in this way. So, but with integration procedures, as it was probably officially stated, so if we will have a similar situation economically, and we will have to choose European Union, joining European Union, or staying at the Eurasian Economic Organization, so then we will think what to do. But you know, here what I see, yes, since 22, doubled, tripled, we have tripled, or more, maybe it was already more than $14 billion trade turnover with Russia. So, which is showing that, and so increasing trade with Russia, decreasing trade with European Union. So we have many things to do, and when we see how many, so the problems which EU will face when Ukrainian war will be stopped, economic assistance, etc., so you understand that maybe for European Union, they will have no extra money to assist you, to help you to adopt with their standards, because European standards are more developed in this case. And if you want to economically have more deepen cooperation and trade with European Union, you should spend more money, which we don't have at this stage. So that's why in this case, many obstacles and many problems we can face. But one thing is for sure, European integration process will continue, and until one of the sides, so as I mentioned, will say, guys, you should choose a side, many things since then can change, because it's a matter of national security and domestic or regional stability.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Husseinov, Mr. Melikian mentioned that we should actually separate Armenia's accession with the European Union from its peace agenda with Azerbaijan. What's your takeaway here? Do you think that, as Azerbaijan states, Armenia-EU agenda contradicts peace negotiations? Do you think it is actually true and EU-Armenian engagement hinders overall peace negotiations or not?
Well, it's a very timely question, and I'll explain why. First of all, of course, Armenia as a sovereign country can decide whichever direction it wants to develop, and with which countries it wants to either establish or cultivate its relations with. And whether the Armenian side wants to remain in the Eurasian economic zone or move westward, again, it's their own decision, sovereign decision. However, several days ago, the new Armenia-EU document was perceived in Azerbaijan very negatively, because it touched upon certain issues, including the issue of Karabakh. Not like exactly Karabakh, but there was a line about the Armenians from Karabakh, and the Azerbaijani side accepted this as some sort of intervention in the Azerbaijani domestic affairs, and also declared that these kind of wordings or even actions may harm the overall Armenia-Azerbaijan peace process. And the firm belief in Baku, in the political establishment, is that right now the Armenia-Azerbaijan peace process must develop bilaterally without any third-party engagement for the sake of the process. Whether we might need any foreign assistance for track 1.5 or track 2 diplomatic initiatives in the future, especially when preparing the societies for peace, for making certain psychological shifts in our mindsets and mentalities, we might need maybe some foreign expertise, and probably then we can discuss certain concrete projects and ideas and frameworks. But right now, the peace process is happening top-down between Baku and Yerevan, and the idea in Baku is that it should firmly and steadily remain bilateral.
Thanks. Yes, just a quick
if
one.
it's on the issue of Karabakh Armenians, so probably we know tragedy was happened, exodus of Armenians, more than 130,000 people. So here, US member states, EU member states, EU, they were assisting social projects, and it's a part of this document. So it's on 3-4 year, short-term period, long-term period projects. So probably it's issue which is connected with this part of population. And as far as at this stage, we are not speaking about return of Armenians to Azerbaijan, Azerbaijan is to Armenia, etc., etc. Still, we understand that this issue is on the ground. We don't touch upon it because it's very sensitive issue, and that's why I think maybe if it's only about this, it's a matter of how to understand, to describe this situation, not to get this negative response on this document, but this is what we have, and we face many problems and still many humanitarian issues. Detainees in Azerbaijan are also in the agenda, but not between our government at this stage. Still, yes, coming back to first questions, we have many problems still on the ground, but we are trying to have these small success stories, and with this success in some specific directions, we are going forward, and it will bring process, just push process forward. So that's why in the future we can maybe having new atmosphere, already discuss many other issues which also are problematic, which we just put aside of this process, not to harm it at this stage.
Thank you. To look at the picture from a broader neighborhood perspective, I would have a question to Mr. Sheremet. How could a potential ceasefire in the Russo-Ukrainian war affect regional dynamics, especially when it comes to Azerbaijan-Armenia peace, and how the two conflicts are interconnected nowadays?
Well, luckily they're not that much interconnected at this stage physically, but there used to be similarities when we were at the phase of separatist movements in Ukraine, and the involvement of Russia was more theoretical than practical at this back in that stage. Well, if Russia will end the war in Ukraine, many things will depend on how Russia will come out of that war. If Russia will come out as a victor, as a victorious party of the war, probably it would allow Russia to spread its wings a little bit in its near abroad to demonstrate that it's back, and it is not only a neighbor but a very strong factor in the region. If Russia will come back or come out from this war not as a victor, not necessarily as a defeated part, but not potentially a stronger player, then in my opinion, Russia would probably start to raise its concerns regarding its position over there. What I mean here is Russia is not in favor of the trip, for example. They would probably raise questions about Russia's connections to Iran, for example, or Russia's position within Armenia, military presence, for example, or even the case of the fact that Russia is the owner and I forgot the word. So Russia owns and operates the railways in Armenia, and without the railways, the trip will not work. If there will be no new lines built, then it's one case. But in order to make it work in the initial phase, Russia will probably react and probably ask for a place at the table over there. And depending on how Russia will be able to implement its will over there, it will have the consequences on the implementation of the trip itself. So I think if Russia comes out of the war stronger, it will pressurize the region in order to keep itself over there as a player, not only an observer. If Russia will come out weakened, it will probably try to to create tensions over there in order to jeopardize the processes over there, since if the South Caucasus region will be an economically and politically interconnected region, Russia will have no leverage over there. And the connections of Russia to Iran, to the Indian Ocean, will be very much dependent on the regional decisions. And Russia will not be happy if Russia will not be able to influence the decisions in the region. As I said in the first time, Russia probably will not interact aggressively over there, but it has the capabilities and it has the experiences to cause problems in certain regions. Again, I don't want to be like too anti-Russian in this case, but as it was said in Topchubashevsky Center last year when we met, Russia is useless as a friend, but lethal as an enemy. So it will describe Russia's behavior in the South Caucasus when the war will end, but I can be certain that if the war will end in Ukraine, Russia will try to regain its positions in the near abroad. And it's not going to be the Baltics. It's going to start in the Caucasus and Central Asia.
Thank you. And Mr. Kranitz, what is Hungarian stance in this matter? What would be Hungarian government approach to the peace negotiations between Armenia and Azerbaijan, especially its role, considering that Hungary is a part of the EU and also NATO?
Thank you so much. Well, Johnny has already touched upon it, that Hungary might be actually a burden in Armenia-EU tightening or Armenia's European integration, as there have been some cases of Hungary pushing through a more pragmatic approach to enlargement and all these neighborhood policies than the rest of the bloc. Well, first of all, Hungary is among probably even the highest and largest stakeholders in, for example, in the Azerbaijani energy industry. Hungary has emerged to be the third largest investor in Azerbaijan altogether. It has high stakes through private and public companies in both oil production and midstream and natural gas. It has stakes in the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline, but it has also stakes in the export of the Shah Deniz gas field production. It is also actually through private companies a large, among actually the market leaders in regional aviation through Wizz Air, and some pharmaceutical companies are highly involved in the region. So what Hungary pursues in the South Caucasus is stability and prosperity. This is all on its mind. And when we see, and I receive this question when I'm in Armenia all the time, why does Hungary vetoes Armenia or the European peace facilities offered for Armenia for non-lethal defense development, some 20 million euros we are talking about right now, and it is being vetoed by Hungary, arguably. And I am in a position to be able to tell exactly why is this. And Rusif has already said that concerning the European Union Armenian strategic agenda, that Azerbaijan perceives European engagement in the region, and especially the Karabakh peace process, as biased and having, when it's discussing refugee affairs, Armenian refugees from Karabakh, it's not dealing with Azerbaijani refugees. When it offers defense measures or support for Armenia, it does not provide support for demining, for example, in Azerbaijan. Of course, European Union member states can offer unilaterally for Armenian refugees from Karabakh help, humanitarian help, and Hungary, of course, as well does this and offers some Karabakh communities within Armenia financial support and renovation of churches and schools. But at the same time, it strives for a balanced approach to the conflict and the conflict resolution and the regional processes. Only this way, the Hungarian government argues and believes, can EU or EU member states take any role, as small it might be. As Rusif said, Azerbaijan pursues a solely bilateral concession and bilateral peace process in the region, but any role that the EU could play in this process, even if it's only confidence-building measures or economic ties, investments, because it's economy that you can build a foundation that you can build political cooperation as well on the long run. So any measures that the EU can take, it can only take on a highly balanced stance, and this is what Hungary pursues in its endeavors in the region. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thanks to the distinguished panel speakers for providing very insightful takes on such an important issue of the South Caucasus, which is one of the important regions when it comes to its connectivity, security, and energy significance. And I would like to open stage for the questions for the audience. If you have a question, please raise it and also state your name and affiliation. And maybe we can collect a few or a couple for the speakers to discuss. Yes, if not, I have one question I can ask, just a personal question, a quick one. So I read in the survey, I saw a survey done by International Republican Institute in Azerbaijan, in Armenia, in 2023. It is June. Before the Washington Declaration was out, that 47% of society supports the peace deal and the peace negotiations between Armenia and Azerbaijan. And also the survey that was done in Azerbaijan in 2023, and I couldn't see other updates since then, that around 78% of people support the peace deal. And yes, the governments take the final decisions, but also it's important to consider the people's feelings and civil societies in both of the countries. And I would have a question to both representation of the South Caucasia here. What do you think? How do people approach to this matter? What are their sentiments especially after the Washington Declaration and its full context is out? What is the overall sentiment among people and society towards this matter? Thank you.
That's a good question. Well, obviously, both societies want peace, but how they see peace might be different. Overall, I think in Azerbaijan, nowadays, media and the majority of the society reacts to different developments, including our trip to Armenia, either in a neutral tone or positively. Of course, you can also see a lot of negative feedback, which can also be understandable because the latest clash between Armenia and Azerbaijan took place several years ago, and this is why the wounds are still fresh and almost all households in both countries are affected. Many people lost their beloved ones. Many people were uprooted. This is all understandable. At the same time, as I said, in Azerbaijan, you can see that the reaction, the overall perception becomes milder and milder by each passing day, because as they say, time is the best healer. But at the same time, you can hear a lot of statements such as there should be peace, but there should not be engagement. We should just keep our door locked so that there is no engagement, no connection, and each country should, go their own way. I don't think it can work in our small and fragmented region, which is very, very interconnected. And this is why we have to find ways not only just to coexist, but also to collaborate.
Thank you. And Mr. Melikian, what would be your takeaway on this?
So, public opinion polls are different in different countries. So it depends on society, which is more open, which is not less open. So that's why even with Armenia, which is more open. Our society is more open than in Azerbaijan, but probably it not be the strict figure. So that's why we should just look at these figures and just more or less understand that, okay, there is a perception that it should be peace. No doubts here. I would say in Armenian case, it's so people want to have fair peace. So it's difficult to describe what it's, how it should look like. Probably after what we faced since 20, but more or less, I think it's matter of using or not using some terminology. It's a matter of positive steps, what we probably a couple of times faced recently. So, as I said, small steps will bring this process going on, move forward, and populations will probably adopt to new reality. So this is, so Azerbaijani society is adopting this new reality. Our society is adopting new reality. Even neighboring Georgia is adopting to this new reality. So recently, maybe you saw a couple of media articles on Azerbaijan-Georgia relations. So situation on the border for Azerbaijani trucks. So some outlets, Azerbaijani, are already writing about some difficulties between Baku and Tbilisi. So, you know, I understand how in Georgia they see the situation. So 3 decades, status quo, and Georgia was the country which was breach between everybody, each of neighbors. Now we will have situation in the future when it will be not only Baku-Tbilisi cars, it will be Baku trip, Nakhichevan, Turkey, so Aras corridor, so Baku, Iran, so then Nakhichevan, Turkey, so a couple of parallel roads which will allow this region more or less to take more goods and to transport via this region. Because, you know, when I'm speaking about north-south corridor, it's probably a matter of Azerbaijan, because Russia was developing this trade road and was trying to develop it with Azerbaijan and Iran. So they not succeed. Maybe in the future they will succeed to have this linkage to Persian Gulf, Indian Ocean, etc. But this new reality in the world is showing that many trade routes can change, but if you are open and if you are cooperative with neighbors, and here we have this pragmatic approach. This is the issue of pragmatism, yes? It's not the issue that we were enemies and since Washington summit, as Trump is saying, so now they are good friends. No, but we are starting a difficult process of rapprochement. It will take a time, maybe years, but we are doing these steps, yes? And pragmatism is helping here, because if you have pragmatic approach, if you see that these steps will bring more stability, cooperation, and will bring more stability to this region, you are doing this, and each of country is gaining from it. And here we also have some ideas to develop the issue, so idea of regional trio. So to cooperate with these 3 regional countries with external actors, so Central Asian countries, European Union, and others. So bring them to be investors in this region, not bring them to be investors in instability or conflict. So this is new philosophy, which I think we have many things to do in this direction, but understanding, and we had already one trilateral meeting by deputy foreign ministers, and in the future as we know, maybe other ministries will join them, and this format will continue. This is the basis of creating this regional tree of cooperation format, and future is with this kind of initiatives, I think.
Thank you so much. I think we can conclude the session. Thanks so much for taking your time and discussing such an important and interesting issue and the matter. I'm sure we will witness how the process will continue, and there will be many more things to discuss. And thanks to the audience for being with us.
Thank you for the questions. Thank you.
My pleasure.